Welcome to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Hi, I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue. We talk about forestry in Mind of the Forest, how managed forests are important for wildlife and water protection. Those benefits are why the LFA promotes keeping Louisiana's almost 15 million acres of forests as forests. The forest products industry, including forest landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers like lumber, paper, and pellet mills, plays an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important renewable natural resource it is. This episode of Mind of the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. This is episode 61 of Mind of the Forest, and we're talking with Dan LeFevers, who is the Vice President of External Affairs for Beaver Lake Renewable Energy. This is a biofuel plant that will be constructed in North Rapides Parish, where a paper mill once operated. Basically, it's going to turn wood into fuel for ships. Let's get started. We have with us Dan LeFevers. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dan is the Vice President of External Affairs for Beaver Lake Renewable Energy. Dan, welcome.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Jeff.
Beaver Lake is a big project for Rapides Parish. It is going to be constructed on land that was once the International Paper Mill, right?
That's correct.
In North Rapides Parish.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what Beaver Lake is.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little history of kind of how we got here. So I know you asked me about sun gas because that's part of who we are, but I'll give a little history. So there's an entity called GTI Energy, formerly the Gas Technology Institute, had a technology called UGAS. It's a gasification technology. Am I loud enough? Good?
Yep, you're good.
And that technology was licensed by a company in Europe, and for biomass gasification to syngas to make fuels, to make electricity, whatever you wanted to do with the syngas. And it wasn't really moving. And GTI Energy felt that we should bring that technology back in and and spin it out into a company. Mm-hmm. So we created SunGas. This was in 2019. I was at the Gas Technology Institute at the time, and we decided to create this company. I named the company SunGas Renewables. I came up with that name, I'm happy to say. And we went about trying to identify developers that were interested in licensing the technology and creating basically wood to fuels projects, whether that would be methanol like we're doing, or maybe synthetic aviation fuel, or green gasoline. There's a lot of opportunities to make different kind of fuels, renewable natural gas. So that went on for about 3 years. We got some projects, developers that were interested, and we got through certain engineering phases, but it wasn't really moving fast enough for us. So then we decided, about 4 years ago, that we would start actually working to identify a site where we could develop a project on our own and find investors for the project. So that led us to the site just outside of Pineville, the old International Pulp and Paper facility. We chose it because it has great attributes. You're on a river. We have a port now. They're redeveloping the port in the back end of the plant. Mm-hmm. It has a railroad spur, 2 big natural gas connections. It has wells. It's a very good industrial site, 1,300 acres. So, and best of all, there is a big hole from the wood supply aspect, right? We need about the same amount of wood that was utilized before when the pulp and paper facility was open.
Oh, okay.
So coming into this market, having a great site, having support of the local business leaders and the local elected officials, all kind of came into play as we just started talking. I don't know. We had our big event in 2023 announcing the project. And then ever since then, we've been working to identify investors, and get the site ready. There's been a lot of activity in the community and with local businesses over the last 5 months or so, because our plan is to start construction next year. So all these things are happening. But the site itself is just a great location, and we've been talking to organizations like the Louisiana Forestry Association and local timber companies, including Royal Martin. And so we're progressing. And what happened since then is one of our investors, C2X, which is Carbon 2X, out of London, owned by the AP Moller Company, which is the same family-owned company that owns Maersk, the large shipping company, decided that they wanted to invest in us. And the plan is eventually they will own us soon entirely. I believe it's about 52% right now. We've also got other interested investors from a company called Enios. They're out of Japan. They're the largest oil and gas company in Japan. So they're investing too. So what will happen eventually when this is all completed over the next few months is C2X will be the owner of both Sungas Renewables. Enios will be investing in C2X and the project, which is Beaver Lake Renewable Energy, LLC. So think about C2X as kind of the parent. Sungas Renewables is underneath there, providing the technology, the gasification technology for the plant. And Beaver Lake Renewable Energy, LLC is the actual project itself. So that's what it's going to look like. And so when I'm here in Alexandria, because I come down from Chicago, as you know, or just outside of Chicago, I'm representing the Beaver Lake Renewable Energy LLC project, which is making methanol for two main industries. One is the shipping industry. It'll be shipped down the Red River out to the Gulf. And the other is for the chemical industry. So we'll be selling some of our methanol to the chemical industry because methanol is used to make certain chemicals.
You've gotten to it right away. The forestry industry is it's really huge. We have 15 million acres of forest in Louisiana. Most of it's privately owned. And a problem or a challenge, I should say, in our industry is finding markets for pulpwood. Having markets for pulpwood is extremely important. So the technology is taking wood and turning it into a fuel. I think when you think of fuel with wood, it's more burning, like maybe a pellet mill or something like that.
Yes.
But this is turning it into methanol. I mean, I know that's proprietary.
Well, I can explain.
But tell us a little bit about how that happens.
So basically, thinking it's similar to the old pulp and paper facility. We'll be taking in small diameter trees and slash and some tree tops and stumps. We can use stumps. We don't have to. We can use them by just chipping them. So ultimately, the wood will mostly come in where we'll have to trim it and chip it. And the chips going into the gasification system will be about a 1.5 inches in diameter. The wood will be dried to about 10% moisture on site. And then those wood chips will go up 3 conveyors. They're special kind of conveyors. They're closed off conveyors. And those 3 conveyors will go into 3 separate trains of gasification. So in essence, there'll be 3 different gasifiers. That's the technology that will be utilized, and that originally came from the Gas Technology Institute. What happens in gasification? Wood will go in and on the top through a lock hopper, and it'll be cooked. I'll say cooked. That's probably not. I'm sure that's not the scientific word. But you'll add oxygen and steam at the bottom. You have dolomite as your bed, and you create a syngas. So you don't go to complete combustion, right? So instead of trying to create, heat or just by combusting, instead of having a flue gas, you retard combustion a little bit, and then you have what's called syngas, and that's mostly CO, CO2, and hydrogen. You clean that syngas, get the water out of it, some other constituents, you clean it up, and then that syngas, so you have those 3 molecules, right? You have CO2, CO, and hydrogen. You use those as the building blocks then to make methanol through other downstream technologies, which are commercial. All of our agreements are, I believe all of them are signed now with the actual technology providers throughout the actual system. Because you have what's called a reforming system that cleans the syngas, and that'll come from a certain company. All these companies are global companies, well known. They provide technologies for refineries and other kind of major manufacturing facilities. And then the technology to change the syngas into methanol. We've also have a license agreement with that company that's going to be providing that technology. They're also out of Europe. And then we're going to make 530,000 tons of methanol annually. 530,000 tons. And that methanol will be, we'll have some tanks on site like a refinery will, but mostly we'll be moving that through a pipeline down to a port right there on the Red River, kind of behind our plant. And about every 4.5 days or so, 2 very large barges will be filled up and take that down the Red River into the Mississippi, and it'll be bunkered down there at a facility where other ships will pick it up.
Okay.
So that's the product that's being made at the facility.
So is that looking at the Port of Baton Rouge or Port of New Orleans or somewhere in between? I know they got South Louisiana Port.
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Mississippi River is so vast and it has so much to offer, and they have many ports between. I mean, the major ports, obviously, Baton Rouge and New Orleans, but there's South Louisiana, which is a port that has many entrances into the river along the route, which the corridor between the river corridor between.
It'll be a port with a methanol bunkering facility. So I believe there's several different facilities that we're investigating and looking at right now, both in Baton Rouge and in other locations. So I don't think there's been a decision exactly where it's going to be bunkered at this time. Yeah.
Well, you have time. You said you wanted to look at construction in 2026. So if you start construction in 2026, when do you hope to have
operations? 2029.
2029. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll start operations in 2029. It takes about a full 3 years to build the plant. I mean, it's a $2.5 billion investment. So with a B, they'll be at the height. Now, I know a lot of our information says 1,150 construction jobs at the height of construction, but it's actually going to be more than that. Those numbers were based on a $1.8 billion investment. It's now 2.5. So the amount of constructors on site at the height of construction will probably be closer to 1,400. And it's going to be pretty busy around there with all that's going on. I mean, you can imagine all the piping, tanks, buildings, wiring. I mean, a
lot of trucks coming in there, huh?
Yeah, so it's going to be very active, and it's going to create a major economic influx of money into the community. Just the people being there and staying here and eating, and everything that they're going to have to do, and then all the local companies that we plan to use. I mean, our goal is to use as many local companies as we possibly can to help build the facility. Now, our EPC, or the constructor of the facility, will be a company called Kiewit. Some of your folks listening to this may know who Kiewit is. They're one of the largest constructors in the world. They build bridges. They built the Cove Point LNG facility. They've built ports. I mean, so they are a major construction firm in the world, all over the globe. And then we're using Jacobs Engineering, which is also a very well-known American engineering firm. So this is a very serious project. It is quite a complex project, and will need many, many different trades, many, many different skills. And so as we move closer to construction, in conjunction with Kiewit, we'll be looking at local contractors and what parts of this operation or what parts of this construction will they be able to participate in. And obviously they have to be qualified. I mean, that goes without saying.
So what about the permanent jobs that will be on site? What number is that?
So the number of permanent jobs is going to be about 650. Now, only about 109 of those will be actually operating the facility. But particularly in the forestry industry, a lot of those permanent jobs will be created in the forestry industry because we're going to be using over 2 million tons of forestry byproducts a year. Now, some of that's going to be thinnings, as we talked about, pulpwood, and some of it will be sawmill residuals too. But we'll be bringing in, I think I want to say the average was maybe 270 trucks a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of activity. So individuals that are in the business of finding wood in the forest and working with companies that are doing thinnings. Now, we will have to meet certain sustainability requirements. So if there are folks out there thinking about participating in what we're doing, there are certain requirements that we have to follow for wood that we take in based on the clients that we'll be selling the product to.
So will you have procurement foresters, or would that be hired like a third party like Consulting Forester or something like that?
I think we're still noodling around how
Okay.
we will complete that, and if there will be, we hope to make it as seamless and easy for the company as possible, because we're not in the forestry industry.
Right.
And so we want to rely on experts locally that understand the forest locally.
Right.
So, and that means that we, will obviously be working with some large companies for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, you'll need loggers to get the materials to the plant.
Yes.
So that's going to be a big help to a lot of our loggers that think times are kind of slow right now. So
Yes.
they're struggling.
I mean, there will be, so in a lot of the work that will be starting soon, I mean, we're going to be starting a traffic study soon.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we want to ensure that the local community around the plant is disturbed, and there's nobody right next to the plant. Well, there's a few houses very close, but most of the houses are not right next to the plant. So we want to ensure that the traffic patterns and the traffic, to the best of our ability, will be mitigated so that people can go about their business and run their lives. Because there are new homes that have been built not far from the plant that were not there when the International Pulp and Paper facility was there.
Okay, so they're not accustomed to having a facility so close. So.
Yes. Now, the good thing about the facility is that in many ways, the things that will be very different about this compared to the pulp and paper facility. One, we don't need to strip a lot of the wood, like stumps and things like that. So I've been told, and your folks will know better than I, that stripping those stumps, there's a very loud process of doing that. We won't need that kind of equipment on site, so that'll be more quiet. We won't have emissions in the traditional way. So you think of a big smokestack, because we don't go to full combustion. We don't really have a big smokestack with smoke coming out of it or pollution or anything like that. I mean, when you compare the emissions profile, we're probably, I know if you compare it to a power plant, but I'm sure it's similar. We're about 99% less emissions than something like a pulp and paper facility, because again, we don't go to full combustion. So there won't be like a big billowing smokestack. There won't be, as I understand, and I'm just from anecdotal information I've heard from folks, that there was some residue or residuals in the air and people had to clean their cars and all. None of that will be happening from our plant. So that will not be part of the situation. But the plant will be large. I don't know if you've been out to the facility, but there is, there's a pretty good buffer zone along, what is that, Bay Williams Road, or Williams Bay Road, of trees and stuff. So a lot of it will be going on where you won't really see it from the road. So that's good. And we'll do everything that we can to make it unlikely that residents nearby will be disturbed at all, to the best of our ability.
Well, you talk about emissions, and a component of this project includes carbon capture, correct?
Well, yes. Let me explain.
That deals with emissions? Where does that come in?
let me explain that a little bit. So folks that are in the business of carbon capture or creating technologies for carbon capture usually think about carbon capture as stripping a flue gas of its carbon, right? Like let's say a steel plant or an aluminum facility, or even a power plant. They'll have a flue, right? A big smokestack, and you figure out a way to take that flue gas and strip the CO2 out of it. The less concentrated the CO2, the more kind of capture technology you need. It can be very large. You need amine systems to scrub it. And I'm sorry, I hit the mic. Sorry. And so you need a lot of technology and a lot of equipment. Well, when you use gasification, because we're not going to full combustion and we don't have a flue gas, we end up with a concentrated CO2 stream from the process. So I guess it's technically capture, but very little capture in the sense that we don't need this big system. When we clean the syngas, we're naturally going to strip out the CO2, but we don't need this big kind of contraption to do that because it's just the part of the CO2 within the syngas. Half of it will go for sequestration, and half it will go into making the methanol. And so in the traditional sense, from a technology standpoint, we're not capturing in that sense. So it's a much more compact and simple way to capture the CO2. And then we'll dewater that CO2. We'll clean it. and then we'll compress it, and then we'll send it into an 8-inch pipeline that will go to a certified carbon sequestration company. I'll say who it is. It's Capture Point. That's who we're working with now, and if all goes well, that's who will be taking it. It'll be an 8-inch pipeline that'll be moving from our facility over to Vernon Parish, where they're building what they call the Send the Hub, and they have other customers that'll be sending CO2 to them.
You're just one of many customers.
We are one of, yes.
That industry, if you will, is burgeoning as well.
Yes. And so, yes, we are one of several customers that they have, and they will probably be growing their customers. But part of the reason that we came to this area was for the opportunity to sequester the carbon. And the reason we want to sequester part of our carbon is because it's an attribute. It creates a lower carbon attribute for the product, and that attribute is very much wanted by the global markets that we'll be selling our methanol into.
Well, CO2 is actually something that's used in the oil field every day. It's a process that they use in their mining for oil. And
EOR has been around for about 50 years. Enhanced oil recovery is using CO2 and putting it down hole, but into old oil fields as a solvent to disconnect the oil from the rock that's left there and to bring that back up to get more oil.
Yeah. So it's just part of that industry that's happening every day right now.
Most of the companies that are now involved with permanent sequestration of carbon and geological formations were also involved or engaged with EOR, and most are still involved with enhanced oil recovery.
And that is actually an important part of the Beaver Lake project, is it not?
Yes.
As far as the carbon capture. So tell us a little bit about how it seemed like there was some misunderstanding that companies will get money from the government because of carbon capture, but that's not accurate, is it?
Let me explain that. So currently there is something called the 45Q tax credit. So for every ton of CO2 you put down hole, whether it's for EOR and or in permanent sequestration, you get access to an $85 tax credit for each ton. So that diminishes the tax the company has to pay. And those tax credits can be sold to another company with a higher tax burden. The taxpayers do not pay this. So think about it this way. Tax credits are used for all kinds of business activities. I mean, all kinds of businesses get credits for doing X, Y, or Z. This is just another tax credit to incentivize this activity. So, I mean, I know you'll hear some people, well, if they didn't get the tax credits, they wouldn't do the project. Well, it does help a lot economically, but you also have to think about they're trying to spur these projects on, because what is known in the United States right now is that globally, and doesn't have anything to the U.S. or any certain policy in the U.S., globally there is a demand for lower carbon products. Additionally, there are large major tech companies like Google and Microsoft and other ones, global tech companies, that are paying companies to put CO2 down hole. These are voluntary markets. So here's a voluntary market telling you, hey, we're going to pay you for every ton of CO2 you permanently sequester. That's a market. It's a real market. It exists. It's a global market. These are companies doing it. And so the reality is these markets are going to grow in the globe. The global market's going to grow for lower carbon fuels and for certification of CO2 sequestration and mitigating CO2. Yeah. And that's just the reality. And so if the U.S. wants to play in these markets, oil and gas, ammonia, methanol, electrons, whatever it is, if we want to be able to sell to global markets, we'll have to create products that they want. And that's just the reality of it. And so I know that people think it's some kind of scam, or I hear that on the Facebook and, all these kinds of things. The reality is this is the U.S. government providing a tax incentive, not direct cash payments, it's not coming out of your pocket, to incentivize companies to develop this technology and this opportunity through sequestration and EOR, so that we can be more competitive in global markets. Because the country we're competing with in these global markets is China. So if we don't have these incentives, if we don't make it possible for us to do these kinds of projects in the U.S., China's just going to do them, and they're going to sell to these companies globally, and we're going to be out. And Louisiana is blessed with two things in central Louisiana: a great amount of forest and working forest and pulpwood and thinnings, which is what we need, and wonderful geology for sequestration. It's a very quiet, you talk to a geologist, it's a very quiet place from a geology standpoint. In other words, there's not a lot of oil wells here, so there's not a lot of already wells plugged into the landscape. A lot of cap rock, or what they call confining zones, and very few faults, almost no faults. So it's a very great. You also hear on the Facebook, and I hear this. This is big. Big companies coming here because we're poor and we're uneducated. Blah blah blah. You hear that. Well, that's not why they're here. They're here because the geology is fantastic. Yeah. And any geologist that actually works in the industry or works as a geologist understands that and knows that.
These incentives, I would guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not really different than what the state offers for the Saints, to keep the Saints in New Orleans or something like that.
They're different in the way they process, but yes.
Yeah, but the overall goal, the overall goal, the overall philosophy is to
economic development.
Right. To keep an industry or to
expand,
invite an industry or to expand an industry.
That's exactly right.
It's not any different than that, is it?
Nope. Okay. Not different at all. So the idea that somehow the government, and the other thing that you hear a lot out there is that this is some green scam. Well, I don't. I am not here to judge why the world wants these products. I don't. To be frank, we don't care. It's not our job to care.
Right.
We know that these markets exist. We know these markets are growing. We're going to compete in these markets. We're going to create a product for these markets, and we're going to utilize the tax credits that are available to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's good for Louisiana all the way around.
Okay. And we talked a little bit earlier before we started recording, and the state has helped in offering some incentives and whatnot to get all of this established, which is, through LED, Louisiana Economic Development. It's not unlike many other industries that has used the advantages that the state offers to get these things off the ground.
We had a tax package. I believe it's a mitigation package for the first 10 years that lowers your taxes and other things. I'm not the expert on it because I wasn't doing the development at the time. Another company was doing it for us, but I believe it's in the tens of millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. But I do want to make a point. LED did an analysis of our facility, and this is based on a $1.8 billion investment, not a $2.5 billion investment, because the number's gone up. Their analysis shows that over the first 20 years of operation, the tax benefit to the local community will be approximately $280 million over those first 20 years. That's a substantial amount of money. Yeah. And when you look at how much money every year will be going to schools and infrastructure, it's millions and millions of dollars. And that's meaningful to the community. That's very meaningful to the community. And so I think that the benefits of the plant in the forestry industry, as far as creating additional taxes for the local community, are very big and very great, and will be something the community will be thankful for once our plant is operational in 2029. And we hope to create a means for people to stay here and their children to stay here, and to have a job. So not I always hear a lot of people I meet that are 50 years old. Oh, my child left here. They couldn't find a job. They went here or there. Well, now they have somewhere to get a job, and this will grow the logging industry and create new markets for the logging industry. So the other thing I want to say about the project, which I don't think a lot of people know, mm-hmm. Jeff, is that the world is watching this project. In the biofuels world, mm-hmm. Of new advanced biofuels for these global markets, we are under a microscope. And so if this project is successful, is funded, moves forward, becomes operational in 2029, and we're selling methanol, this will not be the last one to be built in working forests throughout the South, including Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. So this first one is like, you got to get over the hump, right? You got to get the first one going. But we get this first one going, and it's operational, not just C2X or Beaver Lake or Sungas will be, but there will be many other companies that are already looking at developing projects of their own. And so this will have a great effect and a wonderful means and opportunity for the forestry industry to replace the closed pulp and paper plants that have happened over the last 20 years and create facilities that will be utilizing similar amounts of wood throughout the working forests of the South.
In conversations with economists or those who study the forestry economy, one question was the opportunity, certainly, but it hasn't been done. This type of biofuel hasn't been done in scale. It's been done in research. It's been done on small scale, but to ramp it up for a really good industry that's going to produce enough product and make good sales, that hasn't been proven yet. Y'all feel more positive that this technology will be able to create the fuel?
Since I've been very involved with it since the beginning, yes, absolutely. Just a little background on the technology itself. So the technology was developed in the 70s, and there have been very large plants around the globe built around this technology. The feedstock wasn't wood because, there wasn't really a market to turn wood into fuels. There was no global market driving that kind of activity. It was around coal. So this technology has been deployed in 7 large-scale coal gasification facilities, syngas to chemicals, all over the globe. So this is not a unproven technology. The difference is that it hasn't been, other than there is one operational plant with UGAS in Skive, Denmark, a smaller plant. It's about 150 tons. So one train for us is about 1,000 tons, and there's going to be 3 trains, so 3,000 tons, but a day, that is.
Yeah.
And that plant's been operational since 2008. It produces hot water for the community because it's one of those district heating communities, Skive, and then electricity. So it creates hot water and electricity. And it's been operational since 2008. So the technology in no way is unproven. It just has not been deployed in this configuration for this specific application to make methanol.
Okay. So using coal instead of wood.
Yes.
But the process or the technology is the same. It's consistent from whatever resource you use.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, what have we not talked about that we should talk about when we are looking at Beaver Lake or this particular technology?
I'd like to make a point to folks that, there's been a lot of different things said about our plant. People have gotten on Facebook and said demeaning things about, what the plant could result in, or saying that, if you're within a certain range, something could happen. These are lies. I'm just going to call them what they are. These are just downright lies. We want to be a member of the community. We don't want to come out and make anybody feel comfortable about them being on Facebook or saying whatever they're saying. But it can be hard.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult. I mean, we have seen people and heard people say things about our facility. I mean, these individuals have no idea what we're doing. They don't know anything. They don't know anything about our plant. They don't know anything about how we're building it. They don't know anything about what we're doing there, but yet they're saying things about it online like they have information or knowledge about it. It's very, very frustrating, very hard for us. So what I would ask people, if anybody that listens to this, please push back on those individuals and let them know we're not coming here to do something bad for the community. We're doing something great for the community, and it's going to be great for the community. And we want to be here for 40 years. We're going to employ a lot of people. We're going to create jobs in forestry. We're going to have a charitable giving program. We want to be a good neighbor like some of the other big companies here, like Crest and Royal Martin and other big companies. I mean, our goal is to be part of the community for the next 50 years. And the idea that we're going to create some kind of danger for people in the community is it's hogwash. And I think we have to start coming out and saying that it's just hogwash, because it's very frustrating. Every day I go on some of these Facebook pages and watch this stuff and just watch it and say, how could this person possibly have any idea what we're doing at our plant? They don't know anything. So, we started our community engagement activity a little earlier than we thought because you want to be closer to final investment decision, which is the middle of next year, and it's closer to construction. You certainly never want to let people down that something happens and you can't move forward with the plant.
Right.
But we had gotten a call that there was going to be an event in DeVille at a church. I won't say the name of the church. And so we should show up and see what they're talking about, right? And so we tried to get on the agenda. We weren't let on the agenda. We weren't able to get on the agenda and talk about the plant. We asked, and they said, oh, well, there was a mix-up, or, somebody else is controlling the agenda. I don't remember the excuses, which I still believe there were excuses. And so I show up. I was flying in from Chicago, and I had to go through Dallas. And unfortunately, my plane left late. So instead of flying from Dallas to Alexandria, very nice airport, by the way. I'm just giving a plug to the airport. It's a great, beautiful airport. Small but beautiful, and I couldn't get into the airport, so I had to drive from Dallas. So I was late for this meeting. So I ended up about an hour and a half late for the meeting, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I walk into the meeting, and a gentleman, I'm using the term loosely, was up on stage with a placard. Right, he had a placard, and on this big poster in the middle, he had our plant, a dot of our plant with a big circle around, a 10-mile circle. And he said that everybody that lived inside that circle was inside the kill zone.
The kill zone?
The kill zone, yeah. That's what he said about our plant. That our plant, if you were in the kill, because if there was some release of CO2 that somehow it would filter out and I don't know, whatever. And he said that the property values within that circle were likely to go down 5 to 10%, and outside of the circle, the good news is they go up 5 to 10%. Now, this gentleman, first of all, he can't possibly. Does he have blueprints for our plant? What? And so this was the first time that I had ever seen this kind of fervor regarding carbon sequestration or just carbon in general. Because first of all, we are not, just for everybody, we are not sequestering carbon underneath the facility. It is going in a pipeline to somewhere else. Make that clear. And you can imagine the shock that I had when I got to that meeting. I was so angry and so mad. I wanted to get up on stage and tell everybody this, but we weren't allowed, we weren't part of the agenda. And so that was the beginning of kind of what we've been dealing with for the last, 6 months or 7 months or so. Yeah. Everybody's, welcome to their own opinion, and everybody can have an opinion. Everybody can say what they want. But we've held back and we've held our tongue because in my mind, we know that's not true. We know it's an absolute fabrication. But everybody has their right to say what they want. And so that's the kind of things that we've been dealing with. So, didn't mean to complain, but I thought it's an interesting story because that's kind of where this activity started. Because before that day, all of the interaction with the community, all the interaction with individuals, all the interactions with businesses had been positive until that very day for me.
Wow.
And so it really changed the kind of work that we've had to do in the education. We've had to bring in individuals that we know that are knowledgeable about this issue that has nothing to do with our plant. We're just compressing it and sending it to somebody else. But now we feel like we have to answer these questions when we go into meetings. So we've brought in geologists and people that we know are knowledgeable about the space. As an example, we have many small group meetings that we have at people's homes and things. Mm-hmm. But I tend to bring in a carbon sequestration expert because I'm not. And so we want somebody there because invariably that's where people lead and that's where the questions go.
Yeah.
So the main point I want to make is our plant will be unbelievably safe. We will be built to the highest standards, and it's going to be very, very good for this community and for loggers and your LFA membership specifically.
Dan, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest. Episode 61 was sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit Office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, the SFI, the LFA, and its programs, and how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and the forest products industry in Louisiana, check out our website at lefforestry.com. You can send me comments or suggestions by email at jzeringue@laforestry.com. That's jzeringue@laforestry.com. You can also check out the show notes for our contact information, and you can find the contact information of our guest in today's episode. You can subscribe to Mind of the Forest by clicking on the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to tap on the notification button as well. That way you'll know when we drop a new episode each month. Thanks so much for doing that. It is very much appreciated. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're Mind of the Forest for you.